to watch.
Minus 15.
Respect all, fear none.
Into the upper deck.
Intensity is not a curfew.
Oh, mercy.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
From inside my parents' basement, it is the MASN All Access Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Mancano. Of course, the MASN All Access Podcast is brought to you by Marymount University. Visit MarymountSaints.com to learn more about our student athletes and programs today. Thanks so much for hopping on. We appreciate you listening from wherever you are. We hope you're safe, hope you're healthy, hope you're with your family. And we hope you're staying sane during this crazy time. Got a good podcast for you today. Later on, we're going to be talking to Tim Corbin, who's Vanderbilt's head coach, and he's the head coach of Austin Martin, who is a potential number 2 overall pick in the MLB Draft. And, of course, the Orioles hold that number 2 overall pick. Vanderbilt has had some incredible talents come through. Walker Buehler, David Price, and, of course, Tim Corbin has been the coach there since 2003. So hear his insight on Austin Martin and whether he could fit in to the Orioles organization. Later on, we're also going to have Buck Britton, a conversation that I had with the Bowie Baysox manager down in Sarasota in February. He was talking a little bit about his experience in spring training and some of the young guys who could be coming up through the Orioles system within the next few months. So stay tuned for that. But we're also going to have Bowie Baysox broadcaster Adam Pohl on to discuss our 20 in 20s, Zach Lowther and Michael Baumann. He's going to give his take on those two. But first, let's get the thoughts of Austin Hays on Michael Baumann. Hays and Baumann were teammates at Jacksonville back in the day. Here's what Hays had to say about the big man, Mike Baumann.
He's just a silent killer. The nicest guy ever. Always doing the right thing. Outworks everybody. First one at the field, last one to leave. I mean, you look at the guy. He looks like he should be playing defensive end for the Ravens.
Yeah.
He put his guy in a baseball uniform. He's out there on the mound, and he's just intimidating. But little do you know, he's the nicest guy ever. Scouting report, he's got the heaviest fastball ever. You don't want to play catch with him. It's going to hurt your hand. And if you need him to break in a glove for you, just go play catch with him for 5 minutes. It'll be broken in pretty quick. He's got a heavy, heavy fastball. Every time I see him, he looks like he's grown another 3 inches and put on another 30 pounds of muscle. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think it's just because his hair is getting longer, so he's getting some more flow. It adds a little bit to it. I think my favorite thing about Mike is that he shows no emotion on the mound. Like, if he's given up 7 runs in 2 innings, or he's gone out and he's throwing a no-hitter in the top of the ninth, you can't. He's just stone cold. That's why I said he's a silent killer, because you just don't know if he's doing good or bad. He's just focused on the next pitch, and he just doesn't let anything get to him. I love that about him.
Now we bring in Adam Pohl, who is the broadcaster of the Bowie Baysox, who joins us via Zoom. Adam, thanks so much for hopping on in these strange, strange times.
Yeah, Paul. I mean, it's really obviously a surreal time for us in minor league baseball, but all throughout the sports lexicon per se. So happy to be doing something more normal here and talking to you. Really happy to be with you today.
Yeah, and a couple guys that you covered extensively down with in Bowie. Right. 2 pitchers that we got as our 20 and 20s. Let's start with Mike Baumann, the guy who joined the team mid-season, and he made a pretty strong first impression. Within his first 5 appearances, he already had a no-hitter under his belt. He's a huge he's a huge guy. He's 6'4", intimidating on the mound, but from the conversations I've had with him, he seems kind of like a gentle giant, just a really calm, great demeanor, and he had a lot of success in Bowie with you guys.
Yeah, really exciting year for Baumann. And to look a little bit more inside the lines, he's a big power pitcher, and with what the Orioles have done in their new pitching program and such, Baumann really jumped in his velocity. Something that you look for, the Baysox had a great group of pitchers last year. You could argue it might even be the best rotation in franchise history. And that's going back almost 3 decades as far as the depth of the rotation and everybody that went through Bowie, including guys like Hunter Harvey and Dylan Tate. that had more success out of the bullpen that had been previously starters at the Double-A level. So when you look at Baumann, of all the guys that were starters last year in Bowie, for the majority of the year, Baumann is the guy that's got the biggest arm. And that's something that people look at, because obviously if he's able to hone what he brings to the plate and to the table as a pitcher, that's big. He's the guy that throws a mid-90s fastball, and his slider was right around 90 miles an hour. So those two pitches are outstanding. And when you see that people say that Baumann might profile more as a reliever, it's because he has two very good pitches, and that's what they are. And that really sets up to be a great relief pitching profile. But he's been working a lot on his changeup. And I think that if he is able to make that even an average pitch, it can keep more hitters off of his fastball. He can give guys different looks and be able to go through the order a few times. So I know that's what the Orioles are hoping for, even though he might be a guy that right now could go to the major leagues and give you, a strong seventh inning, every other night. And if he was in the major leagues right now, that's what he'd be doing, I would guess. The Orioles are looking to develop him. And he developed. He really grew as a pitcher last year, and the hope is that growth continues, and that in a few years you'll see Baumann as a staple in the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask exactly when you think he might be up. He is a little bit on the older side. He's 24 years old. I was a little bit surprised that he didn't get the call up to spring training camp, to big league spring training camp, like some of his counterparts in Alex Wells and Zach Lowther. Where do you think, say 2020 was a normal season, do you think he would be starting 2020 back with you guys in Bowie, or do you think he would already get the call up to Norfolk to start a normal season?
I think he would have been in Bowie, and that's not saying anything negatively against Baumann. Baumann, when you look at a lot of the other pitchers that were in Bowie last year, like Lowther, Wells, Kramer, and the like, Zimmerman, those are guys that pitched an entire season Double-A before they went up to Triple-A. So an entire season is about 28 starts in the minors, and I think that Baumann made fewer than 10 in Bowie last year. So even though he had great success, I would have expected him to start in Bowie and to have a really good chance at going up to Norfolk, sometime in the May, June time period. You look at it last year with Bruce Zimmerman and Dean Kramer. They both pitched very well for the Baysox late in 2018. And some people were like, oh, why are they returning to Bowie in 19? But they had not had many Double-A starts, and they spent 2/3 of the year with the Baysox before going up to Norfolk, kind of in that July, early August time period when you look at both of them. So I wouldn't be surprised, if that would have been the profile for Baumann this season.
Yeah, 13 appearances in Bowie, 11 starts at 2.31 ERA. He actually had an ERA a run and a half lower in Bowie than he did to start the year in Frederick. So great stuff from Mike Baumann. Let's switch over to Zach Lowther, who's a year younger. He's 23 years old. He's the Orioles' number 10 prospect, according to MLB Pipeline. Former strikeout artist at Xavier, and he has brought his strikeout ways up into the Orioles system, and boy, he was racking up the strikeouts and was really solid at the top of, you mentioned, a historic rotation for the Baysox.
Yeah, Zach Lowther is going to be a lot of fun to watch because he's a guy that really has an outstanding feel for pitching and an acumen for how to attack hitters. He has a belief in what he does. But the interesting thing is, he's a left-handed pitcher, and the only knock about him, the reason why he's not even higher on that list, because he's been dominant in the minor leagues. His numbers have been outstanding. The only reason is because, he's a left-hander that is not going to touch the mid-90s. That fastball is going to be around 90, 91 miles an hour. I still think there's a chance for Zach, though, to pick up a few more ticks, kind of like what we saw with John Means. Means was in the minor league. The difference, though, is that Means was a pitcher that really struggled once he got to Double-A, and it took him, a long time to kind of figure or be able to excel at that level and then be able to make the big jump. And Lowther, when he got to Double-A, was basically just at a higher level than, John Means was when he got to Double-A, even though they had somewhat similar profiles as a pitcher. Lowther, the big thing that stands out, you hear this talk all the time now when discussing pitchers even 5 years ago, I wouldn't even know what we were talking about. But he is a very high spin rate fastball pitcher. So what you're going to see is that Lowther gets a lot of strikeouts, and he does it. He only throws, once again, 90, 91 miles an hour, but he gets a lot of strikeouts with his fastball. And he does so. We saw this a lot at the big league level last year as well. But you get ahead in the count, and then you might throw that breaking ball down, and the next pitch is that elevated chest high or just above the belt fastball, change the eye level, get that swing and a miss. And we saw a lot of that from Lowther last year. And, the thing that impressed me is that in April and May, Lowther didn't look very good, but he was still putting up pretty good numbers. It just wasn't that impressive. He was struggling. He was still finding a way to bear down and get that big out when he needed to. And then late in the season, he really, really shined. So it's going to be very interesting. I guess the only question on Lowther is, obviously he's the type of pitcher that's been able to run through the minor leagues, but is this stuff good enough to be able to replicate what he's doing in Double-A right now at the major league level? That's going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, you mentioned that high spin rate. Scouts, from what I've read, have also noticed he's got a low release point, which helps make that fastball invisible and makes it look like it's coming in a whole lot faster than it is. You have Lowther, you have Baumann, you have Alex Wells, you saw Dean Kramer. All of these guys, have a chance to be in the big leagues within, if this were, if 2020 were a normal season, within the next year and change. Who do you think of the group that you saw in this historic Bowie rotation in 2019, who do you think has the chance to get there the soonest and make his major league debut before anybody else?
Oh, it's a good question. That's a really
don't want to put you on the spot here.
He was a 2018 pitcher, so he wasn't a part of the 19 rotation, but I would have put him in this era of minor league pitchers. But my guess would be Keegan Aiken would be first. He's another high spin rate guy. The three major spin rate guys, would be guys like Aiken, Dean Kramer. I think Alex Wells has it too. Wells is a guy that throws only in the 80s, really. Touching 90. And then Lowther. But I think Aiken would be that guy. I think Dean Kramer has a real chance to be there quickly, because he finished the year in AAA, and Kramer just has a moxie about him. Most pitchers kind of have a very chill, laid back aspect to them. Obviously, there are guys that can be very different when they get on the mound, but Dean Kramer's a fiery guy. And I think he is so close, it wouldn't surprise me that with where the Orioles are, that he's a guy that would attack this year and be a big league pitcher this year. I think Aiken and Kramer have great chances to pitch for the Orioles here in 2020.
Yeah, I was impressed with both those guys. I've talked to Kramer a couple times. He was added to the 40-man roster, both those guys, in the offseason. So they wanted to protect him, obviously, from the Rule 5 draft. That shows kind of how they value him as well. Well, Adam, thanks so much for hopping on. I know people in Bowie surely miss the Bowie Baysox at this point, but and no one probably more than you at this point. But are you staying positive through these difficult times, or what are you doing to kind of get through this as we wait for baseball to come back?
I'll tell you, it's been a surreal offseason. I'm somebody who probably was traveling too much in my life, and fortunately was able to have my wife and I our first daughter last year. She's just over 1 year old. And Mount St. Mary's, I broadcast basketball in the winter, and they took me away from traveling with a team this year. So I did all the Mount men's and women's home games instead of just doing the entire men's season. So that kept me at home basically throughout the entire winter. And now my wife is a physical therapist, so she's still working, and our daycare's closed. So I'm literally taking care of our baby. So it's been pretty wild because I'm a guy that broadcasts a lot and usually travels a lot. But since last September, I've been at home. So it's pretty surreal, but it is also pretty cool to get to build the bonds with my daughter. That if you told me last September I'd be home this much. I'd think you're crazy.
Yeah, no, and that's a good use of time. She's adorable. I remember you brought her into the press box during the Eastern League playoffs last year in September and introduced her to everybody on the beat. So that was a nice touch. So at least you're getting to spend that time there. Adam, hopefully,
yes.
hopefully we get some kind of baseball back, and hopefully we get to see Bowie Baysox baseball back within the next however many months. At least sometime in 2020 would be nice. But thanks so much in the meantime for hopping on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul. Thank you.
We heard from the broadcaster. How about the manager of these two guys, Michael Baumann and Zach Lowther? That would be Buck Britton. I sat down with him in Sarasota in February. Here's our conversation. Joined now on MASN All Access by Buck Britton, who's the reigning Eastern League Manager of the Year with the Bowie Baysox. Buck, thanks so much for sitting down here.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Congratulations on the honor. Your first year in Bowie and you win Eastern League Manager.
Yeah, it was a crazy year, man. But I mean, you don't win that thing without good players and the supporting staff. So it was a nice honor, though.
Have you had some time to reflect on that season? You won 30 games in the first half, 46 in the second half.
Yeah.
Have you reflected at all on that season?
I had a little bit of time to do that. I went to Baltimore for a couple of weeks, and then after that season, I went to the Dominican and was there for 2.5 months. But yeah, once I had some time, it was pretty crazy to think where we started and where we were at the end.
And speaking of the Dominican, you had some experience there as well as a player, correct?
Yeah.
What was that experience like going back as a coach?
It was different. It was nice that I had been there before to kind of know what that culture's about and how the game's played down there. What an opportunity I had. I went down there to be a bench coach, and our manager was Jace Tingler, who ended up getting the San Diego Padres job.
That's
so.
Right.
About 10 games in, I took over as the manager, and so I got a lot of valuable experience down there, yeah.
There have been a lot of changes throughout the Orioles minor league system as guys start to move up. One guy who was added to your staff is Justin Ramsey, who was under Kyle Moore down in Delmarva Shorebirds as the pitching coach. What do you know about Justin? You guys were up at Oriole Park at Camden Yards together, talking to fans, but what do you know about him as a coach and as a person?
Well, I'm really getting to know him as a person, and he just seems like a down-to-earth guy. Just another guy that seems to be who these guys are bringing in as a new staff. Egoless. It's all about the player. Talking to K-Mo, he's super prepared. I saw, the work he was able to help put in with those guys down there in Delmarva, and I'm excited to kind of see him go to work with this new level.
And now you are in Major League camp, getting to join Brandon Hyde for the second year in a row. What does it mean to get that invitation to help work with these major leaguers?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, Hyder, he's been awesome since day one, since he's gotten here. He's very welcoming. He treats everybody just like as if they're on his own staff, in Baltimore. So it's been awesome. It's a great opportunity, and looking forward to kind of get rolling.
And there are some guys here in camp that you worked with when you were with the Bowie Baysox. You got Zach Lowther, Alex Wells, even Hunter Harvey for a little bit. In that instance, are you able to give Brandon Hyde and the Major League coaching staff a little bit of intel maybe on some of the guys that you worked with personally?
Yeah, we have a meeting before camp starts, and we go over everybody and the managers and pitching coaches that had players last year. They kind of throw their 2 cents in. I hope he takes my opinion, but no, it's good, and everything we have to say about these guys is positive, and it's kind of cool to watch these guys go through, a lot of them, their first Major League camp. And know that they were in Bowie with me last year, so it's cool.
And I'm sure it helps them to have a guy like you, who they've worked with in the past, in the coaching rooms. Have you had an opportunity to pick Brandon Hyde and the coaching staff's brain at all on how they like to run their camp?
Yeah, we talk all the time. That's the one thing. He's so approachable. I like to pay attention and see how Cousins does the schedule and how Hyde likes things run and kind of the verbiage they use up here, and just to kind of get a sense of what they want out of their players, and so I can go back to AA and hopefully get these guys going on the right path, and when they get up to Baltimore, it can be a smooth transition.
And just from my observations, it seems like Hyde incorporates every single coach who's here has some kind of job, and they're always doing something. Do you feel that way as well, that you guys are well incorporated here at camp?
100%, and I think that's one of the coolest things is that, it seems like everybody's a part of this. It doesn't matter where you're at, AA manager, high A manager, it doesn't matter. Everybody's a part of what Baltimore's trying to do.
Of course, Brandon Hyde, as a manager, worked his way all the way up through the minor league system. Does that kind of give you somebody that you can aspire to and look towards as somebody who really worked his way up
to eventually become a major league manager.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of gives you, not hope, I don't know if that's a good word, but to see somebody that's gone through the grind, played a little bit, and then worked his way through the minor leagues. I mean, that's ultimately, that would be a dream come true to get a job like that in the big leagues. But to kind of see all the different things he's done and how it's kind of molded him as a manager is it's pretty cool.
I want to talk about the hashtag Girl Dad, because that's something that you got to be a part of after, of course, the passing of Kobe Bryant. So many people on social media were using that as an opportunity to show how they have supported their daughters over the years. Why did you choose to get involved with that hashtag?
Well, we had our first baby girl. She's 7 months old, so I'm kind of new to the dad game. But it's awesome, man. You don't really realize how much they change your life until you actually have one and how special they are, boys and girls. But my family, we have a lot of boys in our family, and a lot of us Zach's having girls, my older brother's having girls. But so it's something that the Britton family isn't necessarily used to, but. It's awesome, man, and watching her grow and do new tricks and stuff is it's pretty cool, and I can't wait to to see kind of what she turns into as we go on.
How much are you looking forward to your second season in Bowie? All the exciting young players are rising through the ranks very quickly. Are you excited to get your hands on a new group of guys?
Yeah, that's the coolest thing. It's just it's the turnover, the constant turnover at any level. But I really like that AA level. I think that's where guys, it's a jumping off point for the big leagues, and guys are really starting to mold into the players that they're going to be. And then to see that transition for these guys, it's pretty cool.
Well, we're excited to see what you guys do in Bowie in your second year there. Justin Ramsey joining that coaching staff, should be good things to come for the Bowie Baysox.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Buck Britton joining us here. Thank you so much on MASN All Access.
Well, one of the biggest names in the MLB Draft for the Orioles' #2 overall pick is Austin Martin, and he played at Vanderbilt. Now we bring in Vanderbilt's head coach, two-time NCAA Division I baseball champ. That would be Tim Corbin, Vanderbilt's baseball head coach. Tim, thanks so much for hopping on.
My pleasure, Paul. Thank you.
So let's talk about Austin Martin, because he is a very versatile, very athletic, and exciting young player. What can you tell us, first and foremost, about how you were able to recruit him and bring him into Vanderbilt? He was drafted in the 5th round back in 2017 by the Dodgers, but he chose to honor his commitment to Vanderbilt. Why do you think he stuck with that commitment?
I think he saw the challenge of coming to Vanderbilt, both educationally and athletically, as something that he wanted to do. It wasn't a slam dunk, though, at the beginning, because he was someone that wanted to play professional baseball too. But I think the more that we got in conversations and the more we talked about maturity and development, he kind of moved over into this direction.
And when he was a sophomore, of course, you guys won the national championship. How important was he to that national championship team as just a sophomore?
He's been a very competitive player inside of our program since his freshman year. And I think the fact that we won the national championship during his sophomore year, even though he was a young person, I wouldn't call him a young player. I thought he was a mature player. I think his competitiveness certainly permeates through the group. He's a kid that has played at a high level ever since he stepped on campus, which is very unusual, because usually there's a growth spurt that has to take place. Not that he hasn't grown, but I felt like his maturity got him on the field very quickly and kept him on it for a long period of time.
And he had a huge increase in power, went from 1 homer to 10 homers. What do you attribute his increase in power towards? Is it just more playing time, or do you think that he was able to get something that worked the more he got in terms of in terms of experience, rather?
I think a lot of older kids, or kids that mature in the game and grow older, the guys who can center the baseball, which he could do, seem to pick up more power as time goes on. They learn timing, they learn the strike zone. But I always felt like at some point in time that Austin was going to develop power. And I do think there's going to be another spike in power for him. Kind of like J.J. Bleday. I mean, they were both good hitters, and they can get the barrel to the middle of the ball consistently, and it doesn't take them a long period of time to do it. And they do it against good pitching too. But Austin has that knack for sure. So the power is not a surprise to me. It's not like he went off and put on 20 or 30 pounds. I think sometimes that can get overblown when you talk about power. But I think his ability to get to the middle of the ball and him understanding timing was a key piece of it.
You mentioned J.J. Bleday. You've had a number of first-round picks over the years. Orioles fans, of course, will be familiar with Ryan Flaherty and Pedro Alvarez. Where do you think, in terms of some of the great players that you've had over the years, where does Austin fit into that overall picture?
Oh, he fits. I mean, I think if you just had that next-level kid that's in your program and you think that they're capable of playing in the big leagues, Austin's that person. I don't want to be a prognosticator and tell you that this is going to happen to the kid, but it's not going to be a surprise if he gets to the big leagues. I think we all, at this certain level, you start to understand what that looks like. Now, God willing, he stays healthy, then I feel like he will get there. And I don't think it's going to take him a long period of time. He's a guy that catches on very quick, and he's very confident. It's contained, but he's very confident. He just doesn't, he's never, there's not a moment or a circumstance that I've ever seen where it becomes too big for the kid. So I got a lot of confidence in him because he's got a lot of confidence in himself.
And, of course, he had a lot of confidence on the base paths as well. He had 22 stolen bases as a freshman. Do you think he could be a legitimate threat on the bases at the next level as he enters pro ball?
He's going to be a threat because I think that the key to being a very good offensive player is he's got several dimensions to his game. It's a toolbox that you pull out a lot of different tools with what he can do. He's fast, but he's more of an efficient mover. He's a guy that moves very, very well because his brain moves before his body does. He's very instinctual, and because of that, he takes very, very good risks on the bases. He's someone who's always playing forward, and not just the fact that he can steal bases, but he's moving bases from first to third, second to home. He's not waiting very long. If there's a hesitation in the defense, he spots it, he moves up. I think that's what makes him unique. He is a very good hitter, but he is a very good base runner. He's a base stealer too, but the base running component, yeah, I mean, you've seen guys in your life or on TV, whether it's Mays or Clemente or Jackie Robinson. I think of the older guys who are really good base runners. This guy can really run the bases. He knows what he's doing.
That would be very exciting for Orioles fans, considering they've had a dearth of base stealers in the past decade or so. So to have some kind of guy in their system that has that ability, I think, could help a lot. You mentioned his versatility defensively. Where were you planning to play him a lot in 2020, and where do you think his best position is in the future, considering he can play in the infield and center field? He has the speed, the range, but where do you think he fits in the best?
Well, we played him at third base here because that's what we needed him to do. He played every position on the field as a freshman with the exception of pitch and catch, and that's every position. And the unique thing about him is it didn't matter to him. He just wanted to play, and he played every position well. Now, looking at the prospects of a big leaguer, I think he could play second base. I think he could play center field. I get that question a lot. Is he fast enough to play center field? It doesn't matter if he's fast enough. He's instinctual enough. As I said, he's a good mover, and he's moving ahead because he gets good jumps, understanding ball off the bat. He's moving before the ball's struck. As I said, a lot has to do with his mind more than anything else. But I don't doubt this kid at all. I can see him in center field. I could see him at second base. And if you said, well, he turned into a third baseman, I wouldn't doubt that either. I mean, I think this kid can play anywhere on the field.
It's good to hear, especially for the Orioles, who have needs all over the diamond and could use as many good defenders in as many positions as possible. Of course, the Orioles last year with the number 1 overall pick took Adley Rutschman. They have the number 2 overall pick this year. If you were a team and you had the ability, like the Detroit Tigers do this year, to take a guy with the number 1 overall pick, do you think Austin Martin would be deserving of that pick?
Well, I would, but that's me. And there's certainly a bias here because I've coached him and I trust the mind. I trust the competitiveness of the kid. I mean, we're right now we're locked in every Sunday night to watching one of the best competitors that ever lived. And I'm not comparing Michael Jordan to Austin Martin, but the thing that you understand about competitive kids is they get better in the environment and they know how to control their adrenaline. And not only that, they know how to command their adrenaline. And this kid knows how to command his adrenaline. He's just one of those kids that you put him in bigger environments and he plays better and better. And he pushes others around him too. I mean, physically and mentally pushes others around him to get better. So yeah, I think there's a lot of pieces to this kid. And, when you start looking at baseball players in general, we just saw the NFL draft and we see what safe stocks are. Austin Martin is a very talented kid, but he's a safe stock. You can bet on a lot of his talents, both mental and physical. So yeah, for me, he is.
Awesome. That's a very exciting scouting report to get, of course, from the head coach. And you obviously have had a lot of things thrown at you over these past couple months, as every coach in every baseball team in America has. What kind of challenges are you anticipating over the next coming months and next year, with the draft being now 5 rounds and a lot of guys expected to return to the game, and I'm sure plenty of recruits coming in as well? What kind of challenges do you expect to face with the baseball landscape having changed as dramatically as it has?
Well, I think it'll be a challenge for everyone. It's going to be a challenge for the kids themselves, and we have to look at them because they're the people that get affected by any change that takes place. So a challenge for me, I don't worry about this. All I care about is meeting the needs of the players and satisfying the university more than anything else. But if we have our health, we can get through anything. This has just been a tough time for a lot of people, but I just recognize it as a challenge where we can all get better from it in some shape or form. So I just want to take care of our kids inside of our program as best as we possibly can. We'll work it out some way. If there's a will, there's a way.
Well said. Tim Corbin, head coach of the Vanderbilt Commodores, joining us here on MASN All Access. Tim, thanks so much for hopping on here. Wish you the best in the future, and hopefully we'll get to see Austin Martin taken in the top 5, whether taken with the number 2 overall pick by the Baltimore Orioles, we shall see. But can't wait for draft day and can't wait to see Austin Martin come off the board.
All the best. I appreciate it. And all the best to Trey Mancini, too. That kid works out at our facility, and I love that young man. You guys got a special one there, and I wish him all the best and his improvement to health.
Awesome. Great to hear as well.
Thank you.
Don't forget to rate, subscribe, review, like, share, all that good stuff with the MASN All Access Podcast, which is brought to you by Marymount University. Visit MarymountSaints.com to learn more about our student athletes and programs today. Thanks to Adam Pohl, Buck Britton, and Tim Corbin here on today's MASN All Access Podcast. Stay home, stay safe, stay healthy. There's only one way we're getting through this, and that is together. I'm Paul Mancano. We'll see you later.